So if you're struggling with eczema, I really don't think there's any brand new information that I can share with you that you probably don't already know. Now there's major social media trends that curing the gut is going to fix all eczema. Now this may be true for some people, but it's not necessarily true for every case of eczema. But what I do like to say is that as painful and frustrating and sometimes horrifying as living with eczema can be careful about turning to topical steroid creams into especially the only long-term strategy. So yes, of course, they can bring fast relief. And yes, when you're suffering, fast relief really can matter. But over time, relying on steroids without a broader plan can create problems. Now, if you're currently using prescription steroids, don't stop abruptly. Be sure to work with your dermatologist on a plan that's going to be appropriate for your case. But then what can you do? So, I'm sure you've probably joined all the support groups, you've Googled all the home remedies, you've bought the books, you've watched the videos. I'm sure it just really feels like there's no other secret out there. But there is a lesser talked about approach that doesn't begin and end with steroids, immunosuppressants, or the newest experimental drug. You see, Chinese medicine has a documented history of treating skin conditions for over 2,500 years. And it's still widely used today. But it's really hard for people and many Western dermatologists to believe that Chinese medicine can help relieve eczema symptoms. But if we can all agree that certain foods can trigger flare-ups and that some dietary patterns tend to push inflammation, then it's also reasonable to ask the opposite question. Are there foods and therapeutic plants that can help calm inflammatory patterns and reduce flare-ups? So we already know nutrition matters. Otherwise, why all the cure the gut trends? But many people do well emphasizing whole foods and fats, commonly associated with healthier inflammatory health, such as extra virgin olive oil, avocado, walnut, and flax. And many people flare more often, of course, with ultra-processed foods, excess sugar, and highly processed fats. And those triggers may vary person to person, but the body reacts strongly to inflammatory triggers, and those reactions can come on fast. Now, on the other hand, anti-inflammatory choices often work more quietly. They support baseline stability rather than creating an immediate dramatic effect. So when someone is facing an intense eczema flare, anti-inflammatory foods may help keep the situation from intensifying further, but daily culinary foods aren't going to be strong enough to cool the burn when the fire is already high. Now you see, that's where Chinese medicine can come in. Now, based on individuals' presentations, what we do is we select specific herbal botanicals that are rich in flavonoids and other bioactive compounds that research has explored for anti-inflammatory, anti-allergic, antioxidant effects. See, now these are used in targeted combination formulas. Hardly ever, actually almost never, we use a single random herb. So when someone is struggling with eczema, multiple systems are active all at once. Now, one key piece of is immune signaling, including inflammatory cytokines. Now, cytokines are chemical messengers that the immune system uses to coordinate inflammation. Now, in eczema, this signaling can stay switched on because the skin barrier is now compromised and the triggers keep getting through. So over time, chronic inflammation can lead to persistent itching, irritation, sleep disruption, and the ongoing skin damage. Now, Western medicine, this response is managed typically with steroids, topical steroids. And steroids can reduce inflammation and the itching in part by constricting the superficial blood vessels and suppressing the inflammatory signals. The limitation is that suppression alone doesn't always correct the underlying pattern that keeps the skin reactive. On the surface, the flares calm down, there's less heat, there's less itch, but if the barrier and the triggers aren't addressed, the symptoms can return, especially when the medication is stopped. Now, some people also report rebound flares after prolonged and frequent steroid use. And a subset of patients describe what is called topical steroid withdrawal. So now when we use natural compounds, such as flavonoids, they've been studied for their ability to reduce the pro-inflammatory signaling and oxidative stress. Now the key difference is that these compounds are typically discussed as modulators of inflammation rather than broad suppressors. Now that said, natural doesn't automatically mean risk-free. Herbs can have side effects, interactions with medications, and the quality of the herbs, of course, definitely matters. And this is why Chinese herbal medicine is best used with individualized guidance rather than a DIY protocol. So working to address and clear your eczema, the goal isn't to chase some miracle food, a miracle supplement, or a miracle routine. The goal is to lower your baseline inflammation, strengthen the barrier, and calm that itch immune loop consistently over time. Now, Chinese medicine offers a framework for doing just that through pattern differentiation and individualized herbal formulas with an evidence base that is still evolving but definitely worth taking seriously. So in the next part, we're going to break down the herb huangqin, also known as Chinese skullcap, and show how its flavonoid compounds are being studied for the same pathways that drive eczema, so you can understand why this approach can make sense when it's used correctly in combination with other herbal botanicals.